It's controlled chaos. South of the IE and the world on 1050 AM KCAA. NBC News Talk Radio.
I got Kat on the phone. He's a doctor. He does a lot of things. He does all sorts of things. He's involved with the racism in America. He speaks out about it. He's a race relations educator and thought leader. Okay. Ooh. It's Dr. Derek Greenfield. Doctor, how are you?
I am great. Thanks for the invitation and for your dedication to talking about these issues this morning.
Yeah, man. Well, we talk about, I talk about racism all the time because, as a Jew, you're always subjected to racism. Yeah, especially with my big hook nose. I'm called out really bad. You know what I mean? So, I dig the race. I believe there's more. Let me ask you, doctor, personally, do you think there's more racism in America now than there was 50 years ago when Martin Luther King marched through Selma and things like that? Or what do you think?
Well, quickly, I want to make sure we distinguish between sort of prejudice and racism. The individual acts of meanness that people engage in are different from also the institutional structures, which give certain people advantages over others. And so we're talking about a couple of different things. But in terms of attitudes, I think lots of people have certainly become more open-minded, more accepting, and more inclusive in their world. But systemically, institutionally, we still see that people of color are far more likely to attend schools that are underfunded. That we see in the police department in Ferguson, institutional structures that certainly make it more likely that black residents are going to end up behind bars for even not doing anything wrong. And so I want to make sure we're looking at both belief systems and institutions, but belief systems still need to change. I mean, think about what happened to Tamir Rice in Cleveland, a 12-year-old who was gunned down, and yet the police thought he was 20. And that's actually not an isolated thing. When white people are actually asked to evaluate the age of African Americans, they overshoot it. And so a child is seen as an adult. And as a result, the reactions get much different. A recent study was done of having white and black riders get on a bus and tell the bus driver, I don't have any money. Will you let me ride for free? 72% of white riders and 36% of black riders were allowed to go on for free. And so there are these deep-seated kinds of practices that we have to look at. Certainly there's been change, but there's a lot more work to do.
Yeah, I agree 100%, man. I don't know. I just feel that there's, because of the social media, and Dave brought this up earlier, with social media and things like that, it's way more exposed. There used to be just pockets of it that you would see. Maybe it was more underground back in the 60s and stuff like that. But now it's like wide open because these people post videos. They get, these kids didn't even know they were being shot probably, chanting that
they should.
Well, I'm sure. Who doesn't take a video of anything anymore? I see people take a video of a bird taking a dump. You know what I mean?
And it gets 1 million views.
Hey, did you see that crow? It hit that guy. Wow, let's view it. 1 billion hits. It's weird. I believe there is. I really firmly believe there is more racism now. I know there's always going to be prejudice, but I think there is actually more racism now than there was 50 years ago. I really firmly believe that.
And perhaps some of that is just coming more to the surface, right? Before, maybe it was the kind of thing that we knew about Jim Crow. Now it's sort of James Crow Esquire, right? It's sometimes subtle. And so here are these young men who probably, in all intents and purposes, would be publicly positive. Nobody would ever think they'd say those things, but yet beneath the surface, we find out what they really think.
Yeah, exactly.
And these are the psychological costs. I think people forget sometimes that this is not just somebody says something bad and that's wrong of them. The psychological cost of being a person of color, to be facing these kind of microaggressions on a regular basis, to be having to wonder what people really think, what Du Bois called that double consciousness, to worry about how the world is perceiving you, and to feel like you're always under suspicion when you're walking through your car and then somebody grabs their purse and clutches it tighter to you. So you're right. I think there's still so much to be able to do on this. I'm glad that the institution responded and that the fraternity itself responded so well to do that, to make sure that they're no longer going to be able to engage in those kind of actions. But let's just say one real quick thing. White people, the N-word, off limits. Can we be clear on this? From now on, just don't do it. I don't care if somebody says it or if you hear it in a hip-hop song. It's just not for you. And for those who say,
well, that's a double standard.
Other people get to say it. If I'm talking to about your sister, you might say something negative about your sister, but if I do, you're going to kick my butt.
Right. Well, I agree. And Dave,
are allowed to say things that out-group members can't.
I agree. And Dave, that's not a double standard at all, man. It'd be like me saying, "Hey, you Jew bastard," to you. No, or are you saying it to me, right? But I don't want somebody else saying, "Hey, you Jew bastard," to me that I don't know. You're a Jew. I'm a Jew, half Jew, anyways.
Right.
Are you a full Jew or?
I'm half.
You're half too? Okay, between the two of us, we're one whole one. All right, but anyways.
And I'm Jewish too, so there's like a whole convention. The tribe is showing up.
Exactly, the tribe is here. But the bottom line is like, me and you could say that. It's just like black people and say, hey, my N, what's up, my N? But they don't want to hear it from a white guy. You know what I mean?
But they're not saying it as an affront to someone, like they say Jew bastard. That's different than using the N-word, but just in a slang term like they do.
First of all, the N-word is cut out for people of color, of African descent or whatever. I mean, for black guys, okay, or people or whatever. It's not for us. It's not for a white guy. It's not for a white guy to say the N-word, just like it ain't for
so they can't call us cracker then, right?
Yeah, sure, they can call us cracker. I don't care about that. But just don't call me kike. You know what I mean? There's a difference. There is a difference, Dave. That's not a double standard. I'm getting sick of people thinking there are double standards. If you're the certain race and you want to call, your ethnicity a name, you have the right to do that because you're of that ethnicity. Okay, but if you're not and you say those words, you're wrong. And that's the bottom line. And I agree with you, Dr. Greenfield. Don't use the N-word if you're a white guy.
Yeah, it's a time to put that to bed. And to really think about it, you're right. You mentioned before about this age of social media and cameras everywhere. Not that we want people to hide it better, but to really just think about it. Is that the kind of image? Is that the kind of way that you want to be? We all have stuff we got to work on. We point the finger at somebody else. You got three fingers pointing right back at yourself. We all have bias. We all have work to do on these issues. And we can have open and honest conversations. If people are unsure of what they can say and ought not say, if they have some attitudes that they think are questionable, let's have real conversations that allow us to move from these symbolic moments to really symbiotic moments. And I think that's what we need now in this country is conversations that we can have together and to also look at ways that we can collaborate and say, look, all of us are wounded. When we speak negatively about another group, we're now diminishing our own humanity. And it's time for us to lift ourselves up and say, look, even if we see something that we might want to be critical of, let's try to understand. You can get on a bus and think a kid is screaming and yelling and they have the worst parents. But what if you found out that kid lost, one of their parents or grandparents that morning? You're going to respond differently when you understand. So let's seek to really understand rather than just have our opinions understood. I
agree 100%. Dr. Greenfield has a book, The Answer is in Your Hands. It's a motivational book. And if somebody wants to get a hold of you, Dr. Greenfield, how do they get a hold of you, my man?
Yeah, please feel free to reach out. Our website is Derek Greenfield, DEREK, Greenfield.com. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram, Professor DG, and Facebook, Derek Greenfield. And I love to engage in conversation. Today is the first day of the rest of your life, so let's begin.
Go to DerekGreenfield.com. Dr. G, I'll be talking to you again. Let's continue this rap.
I would love to. Thanks again.
All right, buddy. Thanks a lot. All right.